The title Is the Archon World Our Fate? Or something like that anyway. Okay, I'm going to start by saying the usual premise. We're spirits, or spiritual beings if you like, in a physical body. Our thought creates the reality, and we are all connected. Now, this is not how we are really now, because we're not really all connected in a kind of natural, authentic, or aware way, because we don't think it, we don't do it, we don't manipulate that process at all. It's totally something that's going on that's out of our hands completely. And this is why everything is in such chaos. But at any rate, before I get back to the title, even though it just came to me, the main reason I'm making the video is to explain a little bit of how I see this idea of thought creating reality. Now, this is something that I realise because I don't fully understand it myself, okay, and I'm going to admit that. But the idea is when you think something, it comes into existence, shall we say. That's pretty simply how it is, and it sounds quite remarkable, and it is remarkable in a way, especially if you're like me, where you've lived your life in the so-called real world, where you would not think that was a possibility, not even remotely. And it is a remarkable thing, but it's something that we do, but that we have no control over now, and that we are not aware of at all. And this is why we are in such chaos, and why the world is in chaos, but mostly us too. Now, this thinking, when you think something, right, it will come into being as a reality in the physical world, what they call manifestation. And it's interesting that they use that word on TV even. Sorry about the disturbance, but as I've said before, that is what we are, but we are in an artificial world that we have no control over at all. None. Now, anyway, I'll try to concentrate because it's very difficult with the disturbances. This is what I'm saying, because it's not my world. Now, the thinking, this is where we are in trouble, I think. This just occurred to me. Now, if I think something and I want to make it come into reality, and obviously I'm just going to be on my own because I'm very disconnected from the other human beings, because we are all now connected technically, and the world is technically covered. The whole globe is covered by the technology, and this is a different frequency to us, and it's a frequency that blocks or makes it hard for the thoughts to be transmitted, because we've got too many frequencies, because evidently everything, as I've said before, is frequency, vibration, and energy. So we are too, and so is everything else. And this is now there's interference because we have a different world. It's not a natural world because humans are meant to be only in the natural world, I think, or at least that's how that keeps their lines clear, shall we say, you know, whereas other, you put in a different line, and you know, like we have the artificial connection now, and that is a different, so we're not using our natural frequency or connection. You can't use both at the same time, I wouldn't think, you know, but there again, you know, it's there's a little bit of speculation here, okay, but I personally don't think there is any speculation about that actual idea. I think that it does exist, and and I prove it to myself quite a bit, but certainly it's not operating at full capacity. Any person who even is consciously practicing it will get a minuscule um, uh, reality coming into being, shall we say, by their thinking. Um, because, as I've said, we're just not connected that way anymore. We're connected, this world is artificial and we're connected artificially. So naturally we've, you know, it makes it very hard. But what I was going to say, with the thinking, while you think of something, the most important component is not just the thinking, evidently. It's actually the emotion and the feeling that goes behind that thinking. And that's what makes a proper reality. In other words, if I think something, right, and I have a lot of feeling and emotion connected to that thought, then it will come into reality in some form. If we were all connected and we all knew how to use our skills, shall we say, this would come into being probably instantly, and it would come in clearly and as you want it to. But because we haven't got it, we're not, it's like me being given a computer, right, and I don't know how to use it. I know that I should be able to, but I've never used one before. No one's shown me how to. I don't really fully understand what a computer is. And this is kind of like, that's how we are. We have not been told from the day we're born, or from even a young age, that this is what we do and that how to do it, and to really get full control over it. In fact, it's like, it's a gift there that is exploited by the matrix, the world around us, the God entity that controls the matrix, and his minions, shall we say, because he understands this. This being understands this, and we don't. We have the gift, but we do not know we have the gift. We do not understand how to fully manipulate and use it and practice it. It's like magic it would seem like magic to us. And in a funny kind of way, it is magic, because we don't believe in magic. We don't believe in that sort of stuff. We're not educated that way. We're educated only in the so-called real world, which is really false, because it's a fake world. It's a set-up world. It's a game world of the mind parasite Archon God. That's just a description of him, her, that entity, that leans more towards masculinity, though, in my vibe anyway. But you know, I've never met these beings, so I can't say 100%. Okay, I have as I've said before, the history, and it all fits. I don't tend to go into that in these videos, like who, what, where they come from. all I say is that we were here, they came, they messed around a bit, shall we say, with us, and here we are now. It's been their world ever since. We think it's our world, but it's their world because they operate and maneuver everything in it. It's their video game that they set up, and because they understand and have 100% control over every single inch of it, and more so now with technology, because technology is, if we say every time you say yes to something, that is like that's like saying yes, we want more technology, so therefore we want more of that intervention in our video game, because that is like that's something that we accept, and that is a tool. It is a tool of the matrix. It's a tool of the people, the entities, and the god or gods, depending on what's really going on. Because my information has been that there is really not one god, but there can only be one god ruling at one time. In other words, the gods battle for supremacy of this, our world. Well, not our world, no, but this earth. That originally we were here on our own, but we have not been here on our own for so long. I don't know how long we were here before intervention, but I'm guessing that perhaps intervention has been a lot longer than our little existence. But we were meant to evolve very slowly, to develop our gifts and to evolve naturally and slowly. We were not meant to be, and we were not meant to have intervention, but we chose to. So that's why we're in the dark, shall we say, because if you don't evolve slowly and naturally and are aware of what you are, and you mingle with other species or other entities, naturally that's going to change you and even confuse you, particularly if you drift away from your authentic original origins, where you would have been developing your own abilities naturally and to their full extent. You will then start to develop and take, it's like the old saying, you're only as good as the company you keep, and or as bad, depending on whose company you're keeping. And and also it may not even be good or bad, but it will be different, and it won't be the way that you would have went had you stayed on your own, or only with your own kind, shall we say. And are different species meant to interbreed? Are different species meant to mingle with one another? Is it a benefit for them to do that? Now, there again, every time I say something, it occurs to me that it contradicts what I originally think about how we originally were. But this is the trouble with the mind games and the mind manipulation and the mind interference and the changes that have taken place if you buy into the original history. In other words, we were originally, I've said before, on our own in a totally natural world where we were meant to evolve in accordance with all that natural world, and we were in sync with that natural world, and we got on with all that natural world, and that natural world got on with one another. So it's a bit, even now we even have species that fight one another, even in the animal kingdom, and how whether that is how they were naturally too, the same as us, evolving to where we fight and destroy as opposed to creating. Um, and this could well be because they also would come under a different, their world has changed too, and they come under different influences as we have, and so therefore they evolve and change. Instead of perhaps once getting on, they also fight one another and even live off one another, shall we say, at a physical level even. Now, obviously I can't go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years and look at that timeline. The God entity can probably, I would imagine, he can see the whole timelines, I would imagine. We should be able to too, probably, I'm guessing, because if the idea is that we have all these many abilities, but they are now suppressed and not in use, etc., then if a technical being can see timelines, there's no reason I wouldn't think that you and I shouldn't be able to, because a spiritual being should be able to do at the very least what a technical being can do. But that, of course, has all been reversed because we live in this reverse world where it's not our world, and we are confused, and we have drifted away from our natural development, shall we say. Now, I'm sorry again, I have to apologise because I know I'm getting you confused and probably myself. I'm not actually confused in what I actually think about it, but putting it into words and keeping myself on the track is hard because I'm not so good at making these videos, and they are a little bit difficult. But like I'll get back to the original thing though. The main thing with this thinking, our original gifts, that actually thinking, human beings thinking, creates the reality, and the emotion behind it makes that come into being. I'm guessing this right because I know it happens, but I don't fully understand the process because that knowledge has been denied me and you, and because we can't put it into practice in a physical, real way right this very moment, like we should be able to. So therefore we don't it's a bit like we don't know how to play on the computer. We don't know how to use the computer. We don't know how to use our mind computer. We know how to use the physical one that's been given to us by the gods, but not our own one. Now, that's why I'm trying to, I don't think it's speculation. I think it is right, but I don't know how to work that fully myself because of all the interference and because of the artificial world that we live in. I'm sure that if we were in a totally natural environment and we did get back to nature and we did connect back just with ourselves, our other human spiritual beings, in other words, and we gave ourselves time, almost like starting again, I've no doubt that we would learn how to do all this again, and we'd rewire everything more or less the correct way, not the wrong way like it is now. I mean, the way we're doing it now is the way of the God. It's not the way of the natural human. So, so it's a limited way by comparison, I would imagine. But we have developed that way, and we've allowed ourselves to go that way, and we've even chose to go that way. So that's the position we're in. But at any rate, the thinking, like I say, what I think is happening is that we're getting further and further away from getting back some abilities because the emotions and the feelings that we feel and 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 our in our frame of mind when we think something. That is, I think, a very key component to bringing the thought into reality and creating, particularly if it's a positive thing you want to create. And why would we want to create something negative? Why am I creating a negative reality for myself? Why is my world so negative? See, when I want to naturally create, common sense even should tell me that I should be creating a positive world that is joyful and pleasant for me. I mean, if this is an ability, why have I not got everything I want and desire and need, and actually need even? Um, and this is because the frequency of the world is low, and the frequency, the vibration is at a low level, as is mine, because we live in a negative world, as I've said. But the thing is that, and this is why, you see, when we think something, we are not thinking at and with an emotion or a feeling that is happy or good or positive. I'm trying to find the words. We're probably, even when we, at the very best, we would be fairly neutral, and so therefore we're not probably going to be able to create exactly what we want. And if we are thinking a thought and there is a negative connotation behind it, well, naturally then it's going to be a negative reality that we create. I don't think I put that very well, but I really haven't. But what I am trying to say is this. This is, if anyone's interested in this, as I said, the emotion and the feeling component of the thinking while you're thinking is the key. It's the key to bringing into reality what you want or what you desire, or bringing anything into reality. Now, what is happening now in the world is that, I think this is what's happening, is that, and this is more negativity in a way, but and this is a choice too. Like, I may not like feeling bad, right? Because the world is negative and I'm being hit with the negativity. That brings out bad emotion, bad feeling. I'm unhappy, okay? There's only one thing worse than that, and this is the danger that we're living in, because it would be very easy to say, like some people want to numb themselves almost, because everything is feeling negative, when of course human beings really have the potential to feel very the opposite, very happy. And true human beings, I would imagine, the more advanced, the highly vibrational ones, the high frequency humans, would be in a state of bliss, euphoria, what they call, is it nirvana? Is that the word? I've heard that, where they do not worry about the world at all and they are very content. But instead, most of us are like right over the other edge of it, the opposite. This is nirvana here, and this is real depression and real negativity. The difference between, perhaps, I don't know whether I should say love and hate. No, I'm not going to say that, because that's duality, like the God wants everyone to play, and which we do play, the extremes of love and hate. In reality, we really need to be in the middle, because once you're oscillating between one and the other, you're creating negative, you're creating chaos in a way, and that's how the God keeps us playing in the Matrix, because um, he knows that we do like the idea of love and that we're emotional beings. That's right, we're human beings are emotional feeling beings. That is their greatest gift, but they are now denigrating that, and that is being suppressed because the computer world tends to do that too. I think it's almost being phased out a little bit. Also, the very world that we live in, um, because of our upbringings, our circumstances and things, we are not feeling that love thing so much. That is, and also we're kind of wanting to numb ourselves from it too. We don't want to have the high feelings. Some people do that because they've had bad circumstances and bad reactions to things and bad environment, shall we say. They want to then not feel those sad things, those devastating things, those things that hurt them and that they're frightened of. They don't want that fear, so they would rather feel nothing. This is what is happening to a lot of people. And it's very tempting, even for myself, to say, hey, I would like to just then feel nothing or be numb, because then you're not bringing up all those negative feelings, all that sadness, all that fear. Fear probably is the worst, and fear probably is the main thing. Fears from your past, things that have made you fearful, that you had no control over probably too. See, this is the thing too, is that this is, I'm not explaining this very well, and it's just coming to me as I'm saying it in a way, so that makes it hard. Now, the fear is our greatest enemy, and the fear that we feel about when we've been put in situations where we had no power. You see, this is it. You're fearful because we don't think we have any power, because we can't operate our natural mind. We can't create reality without thinking in a natural, easy way. We don't even know we can do it. So we feel powerless. And this has all been, we've let this slip from us, and then we feel powerless, and then we feel fearful. Because when you feel powerless over a situation, knowing that you can't do something about a negative situation, which happens from when we're quite small, this creates the fear. And then we want to numb that fear by denying our emotions and suppressing them. And then if we do that, then we are, if you follow what I was trying to say before, how we need the emotional and the feeling component to the thinking to manifest or to create the reality, you see. So every day we're getting further and further away from getting back to using these things. If you follow what I'm saying, yeah, and the world that we live in too, because we use technology and the world is unnatural, we're not in sync with our feelings, with getting a high vibration to where we enjoy our feelings, enjoy our emotion. Because if you are feeling really good, you would love the fact that you're a human being and that you have emotions and feelings. Whereas if you feel depressed and really negative, you're going to hate the fact that you're a human and that you have feelings and emotions, you see. And this is the trick of this artificial world that we live in. It keeps everyone at a low vibration, at a low frequency, and therefore they almost don't want their feelings and their emotions, which are part of their gift, I think. I don't think that if you just, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I think that the more emotion and feeling you put behind your thinking, the greater will be that comes into reality. Whereas if you just think a thought and it's kind of probably neutral, shall we say, not much emotion behind it, I would think that you're not going to bring that into reality, good or bad, too much. But instead, of course, in this reality, we bring negative stuff in, and that is also manipulated by the matrix because it's a negative, low vibrational matrix world that we have not much, we don't have any, well, we don't have any control over it. The only control we have over it, as I've said before, is the choice to make the decisions based on it. But as like as I've said before, the matrix and the God entity and with the technology and stuff, they can pretty much anticipate what your move will be because they know what you're thinking and they can see what choice you will probably make. And also the matrix is set up to direct you and to set up circumstances that will put you in the direction that the matrix prefers for you to go. So it's not that, none of that construct is not something that you have control over at all. I can't control if I go outside my door. I can't control all the things that are going on around me. I can only use my own mind to make a choice based on what is there. But if it's all negative, it will be very hard for me to be in a state of nirvana, as I say, and make even a positive choice. And even if I try to consciously override the matrix by making a positive kind of choice, I still probably won't be feeling it because it's very hard to feel good if you are in a war zone, as I've said before. It's almost impossible. You'd have to be superhuman. And there are some, not some, there's probably very few. And it depends on how bad your war zone is around you too. But there would be very few human beings who have accomplished this. There have been some in the past, I believe, if we are to believe some of the history anyway, even though even history can be changed by the matrix, and quite a lot can be changed by the matrix because once you have access to people's thinking, to their feelings, to their body, all these things which the matrix has access to now, and this has happened more and more because we've always been in a kind of matrix situation. But as I've said before, the more technology comes into play, then you are giving yourself completely to the world, you're giving your thinking to a computer. You're giving your feelings to a computer. You're giving your thinking, your whole thing to the computer, to the technology, and the technology observes you. The technology is everywhere. It sees you, and it, at a higher level, at the super kind of computer type levels, which certainly I don't understand it, you can imagine yourself that the ability's there to to almost know what you think before you think it. And if you are dealing with God entities that are much more technically advanced, as I've said before, they are the reverse of us. They're highly technically advanced. We are spiritual beings, but we are very lowly spiritually advanced. Technological advancement is not as probably cannot go as far as spiritual advancement. But if you are a spiritual being, as I am, but instead of being up at the nirvana level, I'm down here, like I am, that means that I am a low level, very low level spiritual human being. I might want to be high, but if my emotions and my reactions are negative and I'm not feeling um, in a state of bliss, shall we say, and contentment, um, that is still a low level spiritual spirit being. Whereas the technical being, the God entity who is technical and who has developed only along the lines of technology and thrown the spiritual side pretty much away, or at least certainly not, yeah, I would say that probably. But there again, like I say, I've not met these beings, so I cannot say 100% how much of that spiritual side they have dismissed. But as they are technologically advanced in a very high way, it's reasonable to assume that they, have become non-spiritual, or at least they're negative even in a spiritual way anyway, because they don't believe in creating in a positive way. And I don't think that they do actually create now anyway. I think human beings are their source of creation. They have decided to technologically manipulate the human to create for them. I think this is how it works. They they have the pick of the crop then too, because they can pick the most creative human beings, and they can pick what suits them to what they want to create. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know, and they can use the technology to control all that and to manipulate it big. And now we've given ourselves over to it. So it's like saying, yes, we don't mind giving our thoughts and our minds over to the technology. I don't fully understand the spiritual being aspect 100%, because, like I say, it's not in operation. And I've been separated from it too, like most people. There's probably some that might have more connection and that would be aware. There are some people, I believe, that are, but not very many at the present time. Now, I'm trying to keep on track here, so this is what I mean. It's I can hardly even keep my thoughts on track to make this little video even, much less to operate as a full spiritual human being like we should, and I should too. Now, I've lost the track again. Now, as I say, if we are at a lowest level as a spiritual being, the God entity and his followers, disciples, etc., but they are at the highest technological level, because that is what they have developed. They have developed that only, and so they are at the very highest level. We are at the lowest level for what we are, and instead we have incorporated their technology into our space and into our mind and into our reality. So that means that we would be even further from the operating our own natural spiritual technology, you could say, really. Our natural computer, our natural mind-body connection apparatus, really, if you want to look at it that way, because that's going to impress the technological people. That's going to impress all of you. Whereas if I keep talking about spirituality and spirits, and there's a difference, because there is actually a difference too. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you. It is confusing even for me, but there is a difference between maybe it's not as much a difference as what I think, but a lot of people, when you say spirituality, they think you mean different religions, and it can be. Certainly, people who are along this line are probably searching to be a spiritual being to get back to what they were in some way, but they're probably misguided. They're probably off track because um, if they're not in I'm guessing you'll have to say if you're not in a true heart kind of mode, where you're a really from the heart type of spiritual being, you probably, doesn't matter what religion you're in, you're probably not really going to even be really good even in that religion, I wouldn't think, unless the religion is of the negative God type of thing, then you'll be fine, because there are um, different people do worship different things, and their gods that they worship are different. But there's only one ruling God, though, just the same. And, but anyway, I've gone off track. I was on track there with the spiritual part for a human being. Now, I've said that they're technologically very advanced. They manipulate the humans' thinking, and we've given that over more and more with technology. Look, we've given it over. If you can follow me, because I know I'm not doing it good, as I've said. I'm sorry about that. I'm not getting any better, as you can see. There's now two ways that we're even more at a loss to developing the spiritual, the spirit in us, or the spirit that we are, because that's really kind of what we are, evidently. It's not like saying, like I said before, it's not like saying, oh, I'm a spiritual person. It really is a lot more just concrete than that. It is actually quite logical and actually quite real, in that and the God, even though he's technological, that being is technological. I'm going to say he, okay? If I'm wrong, I apologise to the God for that matter, because I'm, there again, regardless of what, regardless of anything, these are still beings and they rule, and we have allowed them to infiltrate our world. And, so it's not for me to be negative about that or positive about it, really, because it just is a fact. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that all these things are really just facts. But because we don't understand ourselves, we don't think it's a fact if someone says, oh, they're spiritual or they're a spirit. Whereas in reality, I might not feel very spiritual this very moment, and I really don't. But that doesn't change the fact that I am a spirit. It's just that I've been taken away from that, and that has not been developed. I have not been brought up to that. I have not been told that. So naturally, I think I'm just a technical, physical human being. And whereas if I had developed my gifts and my talents that were natural to all us spiritual human beings, I would see the advantages, no doubt, in it, and then I would be proud of that, and I would think it was just a reality. I would just think that was just normal and logical, and I wouldn't think of being a spirit or spirituality or anything like that as airy-fairy or something that you can choose. I would see it as concrete and as real as a technical computer, which is what the technological God has given us to replace our own means of communication and connection with true knowledge and information, as opposed to downloading information that is the matrix, the fabricated because the matrix is a fairyland. The matrix is not really real in a true sense because it is a setup, it's a game. So a game is not really real. It's real because we play it and we believe it. And we're forced to play it and believe it anyway, like because we've accepted that as our whole reality and not developed any of the spiritual side or the spirit or the we don't think that it matters if we're in a bad mood. We think it only matters to us, but we don't think that it affects the world around us. But it's a bit like I've seen on other people talking about it. Just because if I'm feeling bad, I think, oh, it only hurts me. It only makes me in misery. Whereas in reality, that vibration and that thinking, and particularly because it is coupled with emotion, that's right, it is, like they say, someone said a few days ago, there is that kind of ripple effect where it just goes out because everything is frequency and vibration. So it is vibrating out, and so it affects the surroundings. And that's part of how we are creating the negative reality. Uh, kind of like that. If you get what I'm getting at, it's very hard when you don't see it happen directly and when you're not conscious of it anyway. Because I know myself, if I'm feeling negative, I'm not conscious that that is actually creating what's around me or affecting what's around me. I'm not going to realize that if I walk past someone on the street and I'm feeling very negative or angry or something like that, that could be also, that person could be picking it up and that they then are going to, be reacting to that. Plus, they also could be already feeling negative, and so that also will, like I say, what's happening around me too, and people around me, that will make me negative too. So it ends up a double-edged sword, as they say, where there's all negativity, because it's just negativity bouncing backwards and forwards. If you follow me, it would be like that, wouldn't it? I would think. Whereas maybe if here again, I'm just speculating, but I would think that the reverse could be true too, that if I was able to raise my vibration maybe, and there's someone walking down the street and they're feeling not so good, but I've raised mine, that might help to infiltrate their mood a bit, to bring it up a little bit. I mean, obviously it probably wouldn't completely take over them, but it could. It's a mutual type thing, evidently, this vibration and frequency, which evidently is going on around us all the time. But see, this is kind of like, as I say, science, just as it is really science and really a reality, most of the stuff that I'm saying, but we don't see it that way because that's just not the world. That the matrix world is very much only the world of that everything is random and that it's all physical, but we don't have any input into that, not at a mental level anyway. We don't really tend to think that we're consciously doing all that. And even I still find that hard to accept. But anyway, without going, I've gone off track again, but like I say, there's probably two things that are making things worse. One, we are pushing down that emotion and feeling is being eradicated from our world in the human being in a way. We're doing that ourselves too by our excessive use of the computer and the technology, because that does tend to, I think it tends to, we're not in contact with nature, which I think is quite vital, I think, to raising the frequency and the vibrations, and therefore enjoying your emotions and your feelings, as opposed to I'm not putting this right. But at any rate, we are doing this, we're not valuing that, and we're thinking that it is better to be more intellectual as opposed to feeling and emotion. We are now valuing, I think, more the intellect, the intelligence, um, the information, the knowledge. I'm trying to find the words. That is becoming more valuable to us, and we're associating that with the technology and the computer. So therefore, we are thinking that our best way is to stick with the technology and to advance that, and therefore we will be more intelligent and we will be more intellectual and we will have more knowledge, and we're thinking that the emotions and the feelings are not that valuable by comparison with that. You know what I'm saying? But if you think of it another way, the feelings and the emotions that are an essential part of the thinking that creates reality, which is our natural state, and what could be bigger? What could be, like, if that is the truth and that is the real bottom line reality, then the feelings and the emotions that we tend to denigrate and tend to find a nuisance, because most of the time we're not feeling in the high euphoric state anyway. If we were, we would realize how valuable they are, because we would know that that is really living, and and also we would then have access to all our abilities once you get to a high vibration. So clearly the emotions and the feelings are very, very, very important. In fact, they are the be and end all for humans, but humans are now going the other way, favouring the intellect and the knowledge, and even the knowledge and stuff, the information, shall I say, even, it is being downloaded to them, and they think that that makes them superior. um, and that is very much like the God entity favours the intellect and the knowledge and stuff. But also the thing is that if you're not getting the real truth with that, you you could be very, because intelligence is still a separate thing. It's well, is intelligence separate from that? That's an interesting point. I'm just trying to think now. I would imagine that in the high frequency, high vibrational state, the the euphoric state, the happy, the very happy, um, uh, that high state. See, because then you would become aware of everything that you should about yourself, and you would access all your abilities, things that are dormant that we wouldn't even think are possible, I would imagine. Um, See, the word intellect then probably wouldn't even mean anything, because even intelligence would probably not mean anything. It would probably just be useless, or not useless, but you would automatically probably, see, I'm trying to find the words, you'd automatically probably be just so intelligent because you would just know everything. So surely that is intelligence. That is intellect at its highest, in a way. If you can get to this state, I would think. So you know, I would think there would be nothing comparable. I don't think the words even are hard to find, because we're so used to saying, "Oh, someone's intelligent, someone's intellectual," whereas if someone's emotional, we don't think that's a positive at all. That's only because we don't know that the emotion and the feelings is the highest, most valuable asset. It's just that we're not using it the right way. We don't know that it can create reality. you see. And yeah, because I think that if we, this is what I'm thinking, is that if we go too intellectual to the exclusion of the feelings and the emotions, which is what a lot of people have done, and we're encouraged to do that. And the use of technology tends to separate us from one another and from nature, etc., which tends to enhance that. You know, it's a lot harder to be emotional with a mechanical device, what it is with the real things. Um, Although a lot of people do get emotional even on the computer, from what I can gather, but they are putting their emotions into the computer. Oh, see, I'm getting off track here. They're giving it to the computer, which is not really them. So they're not using it for themselves. They're giving their emotions and their feelings, which is their asset, to the computer, to the artificial intelligence, you could almost say, whatever it is. I don't know. It depends on how advanced that computer is, right? They're not really giving it to themselves. They should be using it for themselves to create the reality. Instead, they're giving it to the artificial intelligence in the computer. So that has the upper hand. That has the advantage then, you see. Um, am I putting this right or not? I'm getting the concept, but I don't know if I'm putting it across right. You'll have to think about this for yourselves. I think you'll have to try to. But what I am saying is that in losing the feelings and separating our feelings and giving it and not using it and not using it consciously to create reality and becoming, and because of the negative upbringing, that the environment, to be seeing the intellect and the intelligence as more important than the emotions and the feelings. You know, we're losing, we're getting further away from using and getting back to becoming whole and using all our own and getting access to the abilities that should be there that are not being used. You know, because if we make the, you know, if we make the computer more special than ourselves, or we make the intellect and the intelligence more special than ourselves and our feelings and what we feel and our emotions, then we give ourselves over to that. And I think this is then taking us um, further away from, well, you know, figure it out yourself. We're getting further and further away from developing to the high spiritual level, and instead the technological level is expanding. But as I've said before, the God that rules this world is much, much more technologically advanced than what we are anyway. However we advance technologically will never be at that level, and that is not the idea, because you know, we have to play in this video game, and the video game is low frequency, and it's, you know, it's a game. So the God entity wants to play and wants to pull the switches, etc. It doesn't want us to be not playing, you know, because if we develop our emotions, and we didn't actually have to develop them, we've always had them. It's just that we're now suppressing them more and getting further away from our emotions because it's too painful, because we've got so much fear. Because fear is very unpleasant. I know that myself. Fear is the most unpleasant emotion. And so to avoid fear, we push the emotions and separate ourselves from the fear instead of facing the emotions, facing the fear. We all do that. I do that. I've done that all my life, and then you get further away, and then you become a lot more. You try to be more emotionless, but that is separating us more and more from our abilities and from there again. If we just knew and we were left to ourselves to know that our thought creates reality, we're all connected, and that the emotional component is essential to the thinking, to combine that with the thought. You have a thought and you have a feeling and an emotion behind that thought. I want something. I want something. I have a strong feeling for what I want. I have a strong emotion to bring that thing into being. And if I do that with the emotion and the feeling, it will come into being. It should come into being in a natural world without interference. And if I'm combining that with other people as well, they also will be contributing their thought and input and feeling into that for it to come into being. They will experience that too. Um, oh, I don't think I put that very well. I'm sorry. I don't think I put that right at all. Um, Perhaps I'll have to correct myself there. I don't think I put that right. There's something wrong still with what I'm saying. Not that the basics of it is all true, okay? But there's still a little missing piece that I haven't 100% got. I'm half getting it myself, but I don't want to put it out there yet. Because because there's so many human beings and we're all different. We're all meant to be connected, our thoughts creating reality, but we're still all individuals. Don't forget that the computer makes us all the same, whereas as a natural being, we're all still very individual. Even though we're all connected, we are all like very individual, separate pieces. My thinking is not my thinking, and my spiritual being is not the same as someone else's. Their circumstances will be different, their feelings and their thinking. Well, that's common sense, what I'm saying, so I'm being ridiculous. I'm sorry to bore you with that common sense. But there is like a higher frequency human being than myself, for instance, should be able to transmit their thinking to me better than what I would be transmitting it to them, because they're at a higher frequency. So the higher frequency, the more that all the abilities and the transmission of your thinking to another, and even the higher the higher the frequency means the more you're feeling positive. Okay, and then the feelings behind that, the feelings behind each thought, the emotion behind each thought, then will bring that. If that person is at the higher frequency, they should be able to bring that thought into a physical reality in front of them, almost, you could say, into their world very quickly, because there's no interference, because that human being has total connection with their abilities, with with that creation. They're in full control of it, just like when you go on the computer and you press the buttons, you're in full control. You think you are, but don't forget it's not yours, it's not your computer, it's a part of the mechanism that controls this planet, or this earth. So that's it's a different situation, but it's still that same mechanics, except that it's not really ours. We're using something else. we're natural beings, spiritual beings in a technical world using technology, um, as opposed to being spiritual beings in a natural world using our spiritual technology, you could say, or our spiritual abilities. They're yeah. Well, I've said this before anyway, but the point I wanted to make in this video, and as usual, I'm long-winded and not very good again, is that the emotional part, which we are now suppressing even in ourselves because of fear, is a very if we become too intellectual and too technical, we will lose our emotions, or we'll give that over to technology, I would think, and therefore we will be losing our ability to consciously create, with our emotions and our thinking, the reality that we should be able to create. We will be handing more of that over, and if we, I would think that if I became like a totally unemotional human being with no feelings, that my gift would be gone. I would not be able to then probably create a physical reality with my thinking at all. The gift would be gone. It would not probably even be possible to do that. I'm guessing that because originally when um, I wasn't quite as aware of how important that was to the thinking, because I'm ignorant like all of us in the dark, because it's not something that I've developed. I have not developed this in my own life. I know it to be a reality, but I have not developed these skills. So it's like talking about something that you know to be true, but you yourself have not actually drank of it, shall we say. And whereas we all should, and therefore we would know it firsthand instead of secondhand. It's a bit like if you believe something, you believe it to be true, you proved it, but you haven't actually developed it over a lifetime. You haven't experienced it to where it's second nature. It's foreign to you still, even though you know it to be a fact, because it's new information that's just come to you and it doesn't fit with the reality that you've known for a lifetime. It doesn't fit. That's, you've been in the dark. We're as of, like that movie, They Live. The line in that, they live, we sleep, and this is how it is, because they live, the gods live, the matrix lives, but we sleep, but we create and play in it, but we are almost asleep because we are not doing it consciously. We don't know our skills. We don't know what we're doing. We literally don't know what we're doing. And that's certainly been the case for me and still is in a way, but I'm aware that we're meant to be able to know what we're doing. We're meant to have access to this, and the suppression of, because we are living in a fear world and we have been in fear even in our own lives, we try to suppress the emotions because they're too painful. Fear is so uncomfortable. But in doing that, if, as I say, if we swap our emotions and our feelings for the intellect, the intelligence, the computer, the technology, because that's all about information and so-called knowledge. But it's downloaded knowledge. And it could also be, it's the knowledge of the fake world that we live in, because it's a video game fake world. So therefore, most of the knowledge belongs to that. It's not something that we know ourselves. Whereas if we were able, I think, to get to a high spiritual level, a high vibrational level, we would know the true knowledge. We would know the truth about ourselves. We would know the truth about, well, I suppose it would be like in the movies and things, like I've said, we would just then see the matrix. We would see it as it really is. We would probably understand it, and we would understand ourselves. and we would know where we fit in, and we would also know where we're going wrong, and we would know that we were playing and being played too, because that's because that can't be helped. You're interacting with your environment. Um, yeah. So and there was the other thing which I can't think of now, Simon. There again, like I say, the matrix, this world does tend to, it comes into your thinking. It's a mass mind game thing all the time. We're not concentrating in just living and thinking our own thoughts and creating and feeling naturally our own stuff and being aware of everything. We're not. We're in it. We're in total state of chaos and confusion all the time, being pulled backwards and forwards in this duality, reverse love-hate world that we live in. It's a reverse world too, because everything is back to front, and this is what has been said, and this is also how the God entity operates, and the followers, they do tend to do everything in reverse. But we think the reverse is the correct way. We think that's the normal way, whereas it's really in reverse of what we would have thought was normal before, shall we say, or even to my way of thinking, I would say that I see everything as in reverse of how things used to even be. Like if I go further back into my past, how much this has all been manipulated, to be honest, I can't say. I only know that everything, because we are further away from knowing what really goes on and what we really are, and knowing, or really just seeing the whole truth, shall we say. Because I think that at the highest level we should just know all the truth. We shouldn't have to go onto a computer to even find out information, because we would just know the truth. There is a difference between truth and information. Information can be fabricated. Information is merely what you're told. It may or may not be truth. This is it. Truth is what is the real reality. Truth is what really makes everything up, what's really the whole picture. Whereas information is sometimes a piece of the picture. And if you only get a piece of the picture, you're really probably going to get, it may be the truth even. That's the funny thing. It still can be the truth, but it's going to be misinformation to you because you haven't got the whole picture. It's the old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. If you only focus on the one thing, that will give you your reality. That's what we do. We focus on the um, the information, but not the whole picture. We don't get the whole picture. We can't, because we're not at that level to be able to see it on our own, which we should be, because we've allowed ourselves to be separated from, and even emotionally, we haven't done that deliberately. I don't want to be depressed. No one does. I don't want to be in fear. No one does. But if your surroundings, if the matrix, the world around you, brings you into that low vibrational state, that can't be helped. And so then you will not be able to access your higher level of thinking, shall we say. And your feelings, you will push them down because they're too painful, they're too, the state of fear is too much. So then you're further off um, from from being able to get to a high vibrational, euphoric, nirvana type state. Is that the right word? To where you are content and you understand and know everything, and you're at peace, and you're not going to let the fake reality around you, the fake matrix, the system that it is, the world that it is, because it's a technological world. You're not going to let that then affect you. In fact, you don't even want it. You wouldn't need it, because we go to our technology to get information, to make ourselves more aware. Whereas in reality, all it does is download information to us. But that information may not necessarily make us more aware, because it may only be it may just be the tree, not the whole forest. It may only be a piece of the whole big truth picture. And the piece is going to then probably misdirect us, because we do need to know the whole picture. We need to see the whole reality. We need to see the whole truth. We need that, and we're meant to probably have that naturally, because but we don't, and we're getting further away from it, because every time we phase out and suppress more of the emotions, because instead of feeling the good emotions, we're in the matrix where it's all bad emotions, then we push that down. But that then gets us further away from accessing our abilities, and further away from realizing that our thinking and our emotions create the reality. I don't think that we will be able to create the reality if we are not feeling emotional beings, And we certainly, if we are negative, angry, depressed beings anyway, we are only going to be playing in the matrix and creating a negative reality, whether that be consciously or unconsciously, and both probably, because we're not really doing anything in my present state, and no doubt in yours too, or at least in most of us anyway. Lucky if you're not, we are not really doing anything even properly consciously. I don't think most of the time. We're doing everything unconsciously, and our unconscious is then taken over by the world around us, the fake matrix. So, am I putting this right? So as you can see, we're not really doing anything consciously. We're not creating consciously. We're not feeling consciously. We're pushing the bad feelings away, because the bad fear and stuff away, because we think we do that to survive. See, because we're in a survival mode, really, and that's not how humans are meant to be. They're not meant to be in a survival mode. They're not meant to be in a fearful mode. They're not meant to be downloading information technologically all the time, to the exception of, of their spiritual development. And like I say, even that would be okay, provided you are downloading all truth. But, information, if it's only a bit of truth, you're still not getting really your whole picture. So you're still going to be in the dark. We're still going to be asleep. And we're still going to be punching at air, even when we try to do things, because we're only got truth, but only a bit of truth. We haven't got the whole picture. And that can be sometimes more deceptive, because if you think you've got a bit of truth, you'll go with that. And that can be, is there a saying somewhere in the past, a little bit of truth it can be very dangerous, or something like that? Well, I think that's true too. All these things just, they don't. Yeah, so even the truth, if it's only a little bit, it's dangerous, it's misleading. It's the same as a lie if you don't have the whole picture, or to where it fits in with everything. And this is part of the matrix too. All this is a trick. Like, I see it quite a bit. I'm like, I'll jump onto something and think, I found a solution, only to then realise that it's just part of that big matrix picture that I can't quite see. So therefore I'm being misled again, led down the garden path. But it's like being in a maze and in a game and figuring it out, and it takes such energy to do this. It drains you, and you don't get anywhere. because unless you can get, I think, unless you can get to that higher frequency, that higher vibration, to where it just automatically comes to you easily without all this excessive draining of energy, to where, uh, quite frankly, if it's draining, if even searching for the truth at a physical level, because you have to do it, we're doing it by the computer. We're not doing it. It's not just coming to us. We're not relaxed about it. We're frantically looking for the truth because we feel threatened even, and we are threatened too in a way, because we are living in that state of survival. And so the whole search even is kind of desperate and frantic, uncomfortable. Um, I mean, it's, at least that's how it is for me, even finding out the knowledge of things, the truth of things, even, because it's really truth rather than knowledge in a way. Knowledge, well, it's knowledge is not a bad word, but as opposed to information, maybe knowledge is a better word than information. Most of the time we're just getting information, but it's like if you go and talk to someone and they just gossip and tell you and make half it up just to, be entertaining, shall we say, you're really not going to get, you're not really getting anything. In fact, you're almost better off ignoring it. But if you think it's proper information, you're going to take it as fact. As I said, there's, even facts are not always truth if you look at it, because even facts also could probably not be the whole picture. It is a question, I think, really of knowing the whole picture, or at least getting most of the picture, because if you only see a little bit of something and it's a fact, or if it's a bit of the truth, it just doesn't. It's still not. It's not going to be of any use to you, really. That's why we've all been led down the garden path through our whole life and not got anywhere, and always come up empty-handed or negative. And this is why. But like I say, finding the truth now is so hard, because we've allowed us, instead of actually enjoying even the process of finding out new information that should be almost enlightening, you could say, it's like, oh, I suppose it's a bit like the old saying, a lot of people want to bury their head in the sand, because if the truth is something that, if we've let the truth slip away from us for so long, for a lot of us, we almost don't want to see it, because we know that it's going to require a big effort to deal with that truth and to make it right, or to get back what we've lost. And I think a lot of people think maybe that it might be impossible, and they're even frightened to try, and they'd rather not know even the truth of things, shall we say, which is kind of strange in a way, because I suppose you'd think most people would want to know the secrets of the universe, you could almost say, because that seems to be what man has always been looking for. I haven't actually looked for it most in my life, I have to admit that, but a lot of people do. They want the information, but but a bit like in that Matrix movie, that's right, where he wanted to know the Matrix, wanted to see it, and then when he did see it, as I've said before, he's like, no, get me out of here, it's too much. He knew it would be something big and something, a revelation, but he wasn't expecting it to be quite so negative. And sometimes if things are too negative, where we've let things slip right away from us, it's easier to turn away and to not want to know, particularly if you can still live out a half lie, a half fake existence where you survive and you're not terribly uncomfortable. You know, but that's, if we all do that, and a lot of people are, this is, then we're not going to be able to get back what we, as we should be, I don't think, or as we're meant to be. Now, look, you think that we should be another way. It's a choice. It's still a choice. That's the only thing that we've always had and still have, even when the choices don't seem like much, and even when we don't think there's really a choice, because we're fearful that even our choices, we're like, we always do have a choice to say no. In other words, we do. We can always say yes or no, but 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 if if I'm the only person saying no and everyone else is saying yes, it does make it very hard. In fact, it probably seems futile. And this is the thing. Whereas if everyone was able to accept the truth, then we all could deal with it, no doubt, and we could go back and get back what go back to our natural state and not be dependent on the alternative states, and not not need the things that we now need or that we think we need. you know but while that's what I say, it's common sense, as we all know, that it's the old saying, the majority rule, still holds true. um, it doesn't matter if the majority is misguided or doesn't see the whole picture or doesn't even want to see the whole picture. And if the majority wants to take a different course, which may or may not lead to a better environment for us all, and our own personal development. In other words, if I want to go back to nature and someone else wants to go on the computer, um, you know, oh, I've lost my train of thought again. But you see what I'm saying. Well, you kind of, just think about it yourself, because I'm being distracted. I really find it very hard to keep my thinking, and this is not natural, because this is very much, I think, a limitation. I would say that all of us should be able to focus. We should be able to be totally conscious in the moment and know what we're thinking, what we're doing, and realise what's going on around us. But we're actually not. We're continuously, on a daily basis, sidetracked, and